Title: The Sweet Tsunami. Boston's bizarre Great Molasses Flood of 1919 description. On a seemingly ordinary winter day in 1919, Boston's North End was shattered by a bizarre and deadly disaster. A 2.3 million gallon wave of molasses, standing over 2 stories high, tore through the streets at 35 miles per hour. This isn't a strange work of fiction. This is the true story of the Great Molasses Flood. Join us as we uncover the shocking details of how this sticky tsunami happened. Hear the harrowing stories of those who witnessed it, and explore the lasting impact of one of history's strangest tragedies. 0 o'clock, imagine a wave taller than a 2-story building, moving faster than you can run, crushing everything in its path. Now, imagine that wave isn't water. It's molasses. This sounds like something out of a bizarre fantasy. But on January 15, 1919, this sticky nightmare became a devastating reality for the city of Boston. This is the story of the Great Molasses Flood, one of the strangest and most tragic industrial accidents in American history. 045. Our story begins in Boston's North End, a densely populated neighborhood filled with Italian-American families and waterfront workers. Dominating the skyline was a colossal steel tank, 50 feet tall and 90 feet in diameter, located on the property of the Purity Distilling Company. Its purpose: to hold millions of gallons of molasses, a key ingredient for producing industrial alcohol, which was then used to make munitions for World War I, even though the war had just ended. The demand for industrial alcohol remained high. The tank, owned by United States Industrial Alcohol, was a symbol of industry. But to the local residents, it was a constant, ominous presence. 134 years. People living nearby complained. They reported that the massive tank groaned and shuddered, and the dark sticky molasses constantly leaked from its seams. Children would even collect the sweet syrup in jars as it dripped down the sides. The company's response was simple and careless. They just painted the tank brown to hide the leaks. But painting over a problem doesn't fix it. The company was in a race against time. A new shipment of molasses had just arrived from the Caribbean, and they rushed to fill the tank to its absolute limit, eager to start the distillation process before prohibition laws kicked in. They ignored all the warning signs. 2:25 January 15th started as an unseasonably warm day. The temperature rose above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, a significant jump from the freezing cold of the previous days. Inside the tank, the cold, dense molasses began to warm and expand, putting immense pressure on the already strained steel walls. Fermentation was also likely occurring, creating carbon dioxide gas that added even more pressure. The tank was a ticking time bomb. 3:02, just after 12:40 p.m., the moment of catastrophe arrived. Without warning, the steel tank failed. Eyewitnesses reported hearing a deep, rumbling sound, followed by a series of metallic shrieks like a machine gun, as the rivets shot out from the seams. Then, the entire structure gave way. A monstrous, 25-foot-high wall of dark, viscous molasses, weighing nearly 12,000 tons, exploded outwards. It moved at an estimated 35 miles per hour. A sticky, unstoppable tsunami. 3:45, the initial blast was powerful enough to knock a nearby elevated train off its tracks. Buildings were lifted off their foundations and completely crushed. The wave of molasses was so forceful it bent the steel girders of the railway structure as if they were made of soft clay. One witness, a relief investigator named John Barry, described the scene. Molasses, waist-deep, covered the street and swirled and bubbled about the wreckage. Here and there, struggle to form whether it was animal or human being was impossible to tell. Only an upheaval, a thrashing about in the sticky mess, showed where any life was. For 34 people, horses and wagons were swept away and engulfed. The thick, gooey liquid was deceptive. It moved like a wave, but once it trapped you, it acted like quicksand. As the air grew colder, the molasses thickened, making escape nearly impossible. First responders and brave citizens rushed to the scene, but the rescue effort was a nightmare. The sticky goo clogged their boots, making every step a struggle. They had to wade through a waist-deep sea of sweetness that had become a deadly trap, trying to pull victims from the mire before they suffocated or succumbed to the crushing debris. 5:25, the Boston police, firefighters, and even cadets from the USS Nantucket, which was docked nearby, waded into the mess. They worked for hours, then days, listening for faint cries for help. One of the most haunting stories is that of a firefighter station, Firehouse 31, which was completely destroyed by the wave. Firefighter George Leahy was trapped in the wreckage, pinned under a collapsed wall. As molasses slowly rose around him, he drowned just as his rescuers reached him, his last words reportedly being, "I'm done for." In total, 21 people lost their lives, from a 10-year-old boy to a 78-year-old blacksmith. Over 150 more were injured, some with horrific, life-changing wounds. The neighborhood's horses, vital for transportation and work, suffered terribly, with many having to be put down. 6:30, the immediate aftermath was a scene of surreal devastation. The entire north end was coated in a brown, sticky film. The cleanup was a monumental task. It took over 87,000 man-hours to remove the molasses from the cobblestone streets, the buildings, and the harbor. For weeks, saltwater was sprayed from fireboats to wash the molasses into the bay, turning the harbor water brown for months. Every person who walked through the affected area tracked the sticky residue all over the city onto streetcars, into their homes, and across public buildings. For a long time, everything in Boston smelled faintly of molasses. A popular local joke was that on a hot day, you could still smell it. Las 7:25 saw what caused this bizarre disaster. Initially, United States Industrial Alcohol tried to blame anarchists, claiming the tank had been bombed. It was post-WWI America, and fears of radical political groups were high. But a 3-year-long class action lawsuit, one of the first in Massachusetts history, would reveal the truth. The company had cut corners at every turn. The tank was poorly designed and constructed. The steel walls were too thin to hold the immense pressure of 2.3 million gallons of molasses. The company never even performed basic safety tests, like filling the tank with water first. The unseasonably warm weather was simply the final straw that broke the faulty tank. 8/25, the court's final ruling was a landmark decision. The company was found fully responsible and ordered to pay what would be equivalent to millions of dollars in damages to the victims and their families. This case had a profound and lasting impact on American history. It set a precedent for corporate responsibility and led to a wave of new government regulations. From that point on, construction projects, especially those involving large industrial containers, required certified plans from engineers and architects and had to undergo rigorous inspections.